So on today's episode, we're going to be speaking with a co-founder at OpenStore. It's a company that provides instant liquidity for e-commerce entrepreneurs. Great episode. You do not want to miss, so do stay tuned. So hi 2Xers, welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast show. I'm your host, Kunle Campbell. Now the 2X e-commerce show is dedicated to digital commerce insights for retail and e-commerce teams. Each week on this podcast, we interview either a commerce expert, a founder of a digital native consumer brand, or a representative from a best-in-class commerce SaaS product with a tight remit to give you ideas you can test right away on your brand. So you can improve commerce growth metrics such as conversions, average order value, repeat customers, your audience size, and ultimately your gross merchant value, your GMV or sales. We're here to help you sell more sustainably. Now, on today's episode, you're about to listen to an interview I had with Michael Rubenstein, who is a co-founder and president at OpenStore, an acquisition business. Now, OpenStore is a platform that enables the rapid sale of e-commerce businesses. So essentially, their proposition is the fact that not every Shopify merchant or D2C brand can achieve the massive scale of Allbirds, Glossier, Warby Parker, Boohoo, or even ASOS, where VC funding and an initial public offering actually are fundamental and critical to actually growing these businesses to massive scale and conglomerates. There are hundreds and thousands of successful Shopify businesses with a few million in revenue, talking about $2 million to $10 million in revenue. And the owners simply have limited options for what they can do with their businesses and what to actually do next. So their proposition is they would log into your Shopify, connect to your Shopify store, look at your historical data, give you a near instant valuation within a 24-hour period, and you can close a deal in about a week. So they're building out a platform. They've been around since 2021. And this platform essentially is a selling platform, is a business selling platform direct to the acquirers, if that makes sense. It's a very interesting conversation I had with him. We talk about how to build your business ready for sale, what the building blocks are in that respect, how they built out OpenStore, the kind of deals they're looking into, just generally what to do as an operator to just optimize whatever exits you're looking to achieve. They're based out in Miami, Florida. Apparently, Miami, Florida is becoming a startup hub with a great, migration out of California. There's a small hub growing hub in California, in Miami, Florida, and they're part of that ecosystem. It's interesting because he did mention something where it's like they're not a bank, they're operators. They want to operate these businesses to their fullest potential, essentially. Interesting individual. Just a bit of background about Michael. He's also an executive who played a key role in building two of New York's most iconic tech companies, AppNexus, which was acquired by AT&T in 2018, and DoubleClick. I remember DoubleClick's acquisition by Google in 2008. So it's a super, super clever chap, founder, who has other co-founders. One of his co-founders is in the PayPal mafia. That just gives you, I think it's Jack Abraham, or is it Keith Raboy? One of them was part of the PayPal mafia. So there's a lot of Silicon Valley brains, cash put into this startup, and they are a player in the Shopify ecosystem, in your Shopify stack, if you think about it. That's all I would say. I have a massive announcement on the next episode. I think it's going to be a very different episode. I just want to say that. Besides that, how is the new year doing? How are you? Are you guys doing this new year? How have you started the year? We're going to be running some events very soon this year. I'm going to do a predictions episode very soon also. And yeah, I'd just like to know, reach out to me via Twitter or LinkedIn. I really like to interact with you guys. Some of you do that a lot. And I just want to thank our sponsors, Klaviyo, Rewind, and Gorgeous. You guys are magnificent. And I shall catch you on the other side. So welcome, Michael. I have been absolutely waiting for this conversation. Welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Could you take a little, just a minute or maybe two to introduce yourself and OpenStore?
Sure. So I'm Michael Rubenstein. I've spent the past 2 decades plus building a number of pretty iconic digital marketing, digital advertising platform businesses, companies that are well known like DoubleClick and AppNexus. I've been very, very close to the e-commerce space, helping e-commerce merchants build their business. My new business is OpenStore. It's a very unique business, very unique concept. And essentially, we are providing instant liquidity to direct-to-consumer e-commerce merchants for their business. We're acquiring e-commerce businesses. Today, it's Shopify sellers, so Shopify-based merchants. And it's a very exciting concept, really, around the growth of the e-commerce space and providing a real necessary service.
It's incredible. Very, very exciting. I like the term instant liquidity to e-commerce entrepreneurs, and a ton of listeners rather are Shopify store owners. And I also like the fact that you're very focused on Shopify. So why is there a need? Why is there a need now? And how did you how long have you been on for, and how did you come to the ideation and to the birth of OpenStore?
Yeah. Well, we started the company about a year ago, so early 2021. The concept was originally hatched by one of our co-founders, Jack Abraham, who is a legendary entrepreneur and investor himself. He started a number of companies. And Keith Raboy, who's, of course, a legendary Silicon Valley entrepreneur, executive investor, who's recently, who last year relocated to Miami and has been focused on building the Miami tech scene. And I think that like all really exciting startups, it's built around solving a problem. And I think that the problem in this particular case is that if you look over the last 10 years or so, the number of e-commerce merchants that have built businesses on Shopify and other platforms just exploded. And there are literally millions of these merchants. And there are not really good options for those entrepreneurs to sell their business when they get to the place where they've decided it's time to sell. I mean, not every entrepreneur certainly wants to sell their business. Some want to operate their business in perpetuity or for a long period of time. But, if you get to the point where you want to sell your business, it's time to move on to the next thing, or what people have different reasons and motivations. There aren't really great options in the marketplace today, and we provide that at OpenStore. So you go to open.store, provide access to your Shopify order history, bank data, some other information, marketing data, and we will give you a price for the business within a business day.
That's incredible.
And also we've recently also started providing some reporting, explaining how we get to the price that we provide as well. And as an entrepreneur, it's an incredible opportunity. You can sell your business. We have had situations where from the time someone has come to our website, we've acquired their business a week later. And, that is, I think, a really compelling value proposition to know that as an entrepreneur, when it's time to sell, that you can do so in a way that's really clear and transparent. It's really streamlined and automated and easy. And you don't have to worry or stress about a lot of the complexities that typically would be involved in selling your business otherwise.
Right. So there's a lot to unpick from what you just said. Your turnaround times are just unheard of, which sounds to me like there's a lot of automation, going on there. You did allude to the fact that you probably have like a Shopify connector, which obviously gets all their sales records over a period of time, as well as the fact that you're able to they need to, I think, upload their bank statement. Is that all that's required from merchants who are looking to sell their business, or do you need other data points?
Yeah, we actually just connect to the bank account via Plaid.
Okay.
if people provide a P&L statement or some financial statements, that's great. But again, we strive to make it as easy as possible so that people can connect us with the information we need to price the business within minutes. And then from our side, yes, you're correct. We have built automation and algorithms that essentially look at this data that we ingest about your business and allow us to turn around a price so quickly. And so, yeah, that's exactly what we've
So you're kind of like
making it
generating,
really streamlined and
okay, so you're
automated.
kind of like generating a P&L from the data you see in Shopify. But there are things that do not reflect in Shopify, such as like cost of goods. How are you figuring, other expenses or COGS, into the mix?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, to the extent that people have that information and they upload it to us in the form of financial statements, that's helpful. But as I mentioned before, we'll also connect to bank
Got it.
information and try to reconstruct that as best
Got
as
it.
we can as
And
well.
that's
And so,
and that's why
yeah,
it's important to keep your personal, expenses away from your business. So, in for valuations such as this, everything is nice and clean. The expenses that are related to the business and the business alone. That makes a ton of sense. Are you operating just in the US? So can you acquire UK businesses? What does your jurisdiction look like?
today we're acquiring US-based
Okay.
businesses. I would expect that we will be acquiring businesses outside the US at
Mm.
some point, but today we're focused. We're as I mentioned, relatively new at
Okay.
this and starting
There,
with US-based
there are
businesses.
some UK businesses that predominantly sell in the US. Just given the fact that the US is 5 times our market size, so they might have like US versions of their UK site. Would they be in consideration, or are you looking to just purchase US entities?
It's a good question. I think we probably could acquire a business if the majority of the business is in the US market at this
Mm.
point. Um, I would recommend that UK-based merchants, if you're interested, go to
Mm.
open.store. There's no downside to giving us your information and receiving a price for your
Mm.
business. I mean, at minimum, you'll get a sense of what we think your business is worth and why, which I think tends to be really um, good information, helpful information for people to have. And we'll go from there.
Incredible. So you alluded to the fact that you've been around for just about a year. So how many businesses has Store acquired thus far?
Yeah, we've acquired dozens of businesses at this point. We really didn't start, as I mentioned, we started the company a year ago, but we spent the first 6 months or so really building the foundational team and building those foundational algorithms and workflow that would help us to automate and streamline that M&A process that you mentioned
Hmm.
before. So we really started acquiring businesses in the late summer or early fall, and we've acquired, as I mentioned, dozens, and now it's really ramping quickly. I would say it's quite normal for us to acquire multiple businesses per week at this
Hmm.
point, and things are moving quickly.
Okay. Just one other question around, again, this is just a bit of a complexity glitch, which is like multi-channel Shopify stores, um, in which maybe Shopify is a mothership and they're doing maybe 20% on a marketplace resorts. How do you sort of, would they only be selling the Shopify business, or is this something you just don't touch from your perspective?
No, we're buying the whole business, so we're not just buying the Shopify portion of the business. At this point, at this moment, we're looking for businesses that are predominantly Shopify
Okay.
based, where the majority of the business is coming in through Shopify. We understand that some merchants monetize through some other channels, and so we'll still price or acquire businesses that have that
Mhm.
characteristic. But if there's too much business, more than a small portion coming through other channels at this point, that's not in our sweet spot. But yeah, we're looking today for predominantly Shopify-based
Got it.
businesses, and I would expect over time we'll
Got
expand
it.
that.
Got it. Okay, so let's talk multiples. What kind of I'm just trying to project for listeners. They know their gross margins or their EBITDA, what have you. So what kind of multiples should they expect from OpenStore?
It really varies by
Mm,
business, and I think that is, you know, part of what we're doing here is we're not offering a multiple for your business. We are actually looking at what the data says about your business, and we are determining essentially, how valuable we believe the business will be in the future. Because our plan is, we acquire these businesses, as I mentioned, and we move them over to our platform, and we operate. Our intention is to operate and build and grow these businesses for the long term. So businesses clearly that we have reason to believe have a fantastic trajectory ahead of them will be priced well, and businesses that are declining or maybe aren't profitable or we can't see the path, less so. So it really varies. I would say more than multiple, I would encourage people to think about, the quality of the
mm,
business. Is the business profitable? Is it growing? Are customers coming back and buying routinely from the company? Um, is there interesting new product development that's happening that allows um, customers increasingly to buy more and more from the merchant? Those are the kinds of things that we're looking at.
incredible. Interesting. I was going to ask you to speak to your long-term vision for the brand. I think in the notes I have, that there's a mention of the fact that not every e-commerce business is going to be like an Allbirds or a Warby Parker or a Glossier. Does open source intend to find these diamond in the rough, brands essentially, and scale them to Warby Parker or what have you?
I mean, certainly, I think there are some brands out there that have that potential, and we will provide the investment and the care for those brands to do so. Um, so, yeah, I think that I think, inevitable that some of the brands that we acquire in this large portfolio will have that kind of potential. And I think we're bringing the team, the talent, the technology, the financial heft to the table to be able to invest and grow these businesses and help them realize their full potential.
Incredible. So are you going to carry over their existing teams, for like brands that have teams, or is it your people? Are you going to have cross-functional teams or very specific teams per brand? What does it look like post acquisition?
Yeah. Part of our value proposition to the owner of these businesses, the seller, is that we are able to provide full liquidity, and we allow you to move on to your next
Mm,
venture. And so there is a brief transition period after the sale. I mean, it could be weeks. As fast as possible is great for us. And then we take over the operations of these businesses. And so, the founders, the operators of these businesses don't come along with the acquisition. They may have some staff or some relationships in operating the businesses that we determine are important to keep on as part of the
mhm.
transition. And we evaluate that as part of our diligence and transition period. But I think our clear value proposition to the entrepreneur is that we allow you to get liquidity for the business and move on to whatever is next.
Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. What about verticals? Are you biased to certain verticals? Are you open to any and every vertical? I mean, there's some, gray, area verticals such as, CBD, hemp, vaping. I don't know. Just you open to all verticals?
Yeah, we're relatively vertical agnostic at
Mm,
this stage. I mean, if a merchant comes in and they're represent a category or they have a product line that just really doesn't fit with our portfolio, we'll let them know. But we like to say that we're category or vertical agnostic today.
Interesting. One other question, it's like off-field question, really has got to do with why didn't you become Amazon aggregators? It just sounds like you guys are consolidating at scale. D2C e-commerce brands on Shopify. You're doing almost the same thing, aggregators are doing. So why didn't you opt for the sort of Amazon aggregator, model? And just your thinking. I'll really be interested to know why.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the thing we have in common with the Amazon aggregators is that we're both acquiring businesses. But I really think the comparisons end there. There are so many differences between the the business we're building and the business that we typically see in the Amazon aggregation space. I mean, for one, um, we have a very short, very quick turnaround period, obviously, and have invested a lot in automation for the M&A process itself. So I think some of the Amazon merchants have quoted that, the process could take
Hmm.
months to sell businesses. Again, we're aiming for days or weeks here. Um, Also, obviously, Amazon aggregators are interested in marketplace sellers. We're interested in direct-to-consumer sellers and brands. Um, I think that there's just the e-commerce space is a big, vibrant space, and I think we've chosen our direction, our path, and clearly we're interested in working with and acquiring and operating ourselves direct-to-consumer businesses.
Super interesting. Do you have any customer stories? Anything really memorable from an open source from acquisition standpoint? I really want to get into the eyes and feet of an entrepreneur who's been running their business, and they approached yourselves and eventually sold, and how life changing was that process. How smooth was the process, and how life changing was the experience with yourselves.
Yeah, well, one of the really cool things about OpenStore, one of the things I enjoy most is just working with entrepreneurs, especially for me, having built and sold businesses before, which were large enterprises working with big corporate customers, which is always fun. But the relatability and the human element of working with small and medium sized business owners is just, you can't beat that. Um, it's so fun to work with people every day who are pouring their heart and soul into building these
Mm.
businesses and want to see them land in a great place, want to receive a fair offer when they're ready to sell. I mean, it's really, really
Mm.
gratifying. So one that comes to mind is our first seller actually was a company called Farm Foods. Um, it was started just before the pandemic by an entrepreneur who'd previously had a career in HR working at companies like Tesla. And essentially, it's online meat delivery, organic meats, and across a variety of different meat,
Mm.
poultry, and
Mm.
so forth. And it's a category that really took off during the pandemic. As you can imagine, more and more people are ordering their meat for
Mm.
delivery online as opposed to going to their local grocery store, especially given the fact that these meats are locally
Mm.
sourced and organic and sustainable and so forth. And so the business experienced a lot of growth in a short period
Mm.
of time during the pandemic. And the founder felt like it was the right time to sell the
Mm.
business and move to the next adventure for herself, but also put it in the hands of folks who were expert at and passionate about scaling the
Mm.
business and really fully realizing the vision and the opportunity for the business. And so we acquired Farm Foods. It was our first brand, and it's been great. It's been really exciting. It's been a win for us. We now own this fantastic brand in a really interesting space that has high potential and are excited about
Mm-hmm.
growing it, and a win for the entrepreneur, a multi-million-dollar payout that ultimately can be the source of fuel for whatever it is that she's going to pursue into the
Incredible, and
market.
it's also it's almost like a habit forming product. It's sorry, product category. Groceries. You'd always buy groceries, so I can imagine their retention rates were up the roof, and that's predictability of future revenue. They've just piled up their value. I presume, given the fact that it was such a young business, because you did say it started at the probably March of 2020, at the start of the pandemic, March or Q2 or Q1 of 2020.
I think it started a little before
Okay,
then, but it really took
then
off
okay,
during
makes
that
sense.
period.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, going back to one of the one of the questions I asked prior, which is I want to sort of get into the reason I want to ask this question I'm going to ask is because there's some entrepreneurs listening or watching this episode now who are like fired up in regards to wanting to sell their business for the highest value possible. They're thinking, okay, how can I maximize value now? I've been running my business for X amount of months or years, and I'm actually thinking, I've been thinking about an exit, at some point. Um, what are the key components they should be looking at? So when they get to open.store, which is your website, bingo,
Yep.
as in you guys have a life-changing, give them a life-changing deal now. So it's really forward thinking, really. So what layers or what should they start thinking about from a growth, from a value growth perspective?
Yeah. Well, a couple thoughts. I mean, one is you don't have to plan or think too
Mm,
much before going to Open.store. You can come to us, give us your information, and as I mentioned, it takes minutes to give us access to Shopify orders, your bank data, your Facebook marketing spend. We'll turn around a price in a business day, and we'll give you access to really helpful information as to how we're arriving at the price that we're arriving at. And so you don't have to like prepare for months to be able to come to our website and submit. We recognize some people will come and they'll price their business, and they may decide a year from now that they want to sell, and they can come back then and do it again. It's
mm,
totally fine. We encourage people to engage with us and to begin that relationship. In terms of what we are looking for, it's it's the same stuff that an entrepreneur is looking for when they're growing their business, which is um, because again, we're not bankers, we're operators ourselves. So our intention is to continue to operate and grow these businesses, and so we want to know that the business is growing, that the business is profitable or on a path to profitability. We want to know that customers like the products and that they're coming back and buying the products again and
mm.
again. Um, we want to see that there's innovation happening in the space. I think that we're going to want to see that marketing can be done efficiently, cost effectively and efficiently, and so forth with these customers. So it's it's yeah, just pretty much the basics that any entrepreneur will be looking at when they're running their own business as well.
Incredible, incredible. Um, going to ask you just a general question, which is what's your outlook for e-commerce in 2021, 2022? Given that this is the start of the year, still used to calling the year 2021, but what is your outlook from your personal perspective? From you're going through a lot of deal flow. You're also speaking with entrepreneurs on a daily basis. Um, just yeah, I'd like you to give your perspective of 2022 with the context of what has already happened in 2021 and 2020.
Yeah, I mean, clearly we're coming out of a multi-year period where e-commerce growth has just been pretty phenomenal. I think the tailwinds of the pandemic have helped the growth of the sector. I think that there are some near-term challenges. I mean, you have supply chain issues, which of course are well documented, well understood, and much discussed at this point. You also have just tougher year-on-year comps. I think, the ability to continue to grow at the rate at which an entrepreneur may have seen growth over the last couple of years is gets harder and harder every year. I mean, I think that there are. If you zoom out, I think the macro view on the e-commerce space is incredible. I'm in this space. We're all in this space because we believe tremendously in the 10-year growth of the space. But I think there are near-term challenges, and of course, what we see working with entrepreneurs is, access to financing, access to liquidity, access to things like that also doesn't really exist very well right now. And that's part of the problem that we are here to try to help address.
Absolutely. Just very, very well put. Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. But before I let you go, we have what we call a rapid fire section. It's a list of about 6-7 questions, and I asked them if you could answer each of them with a single sentence. It would be brilliant. We want to know a little bit about you, and that is the purpose of this section of the podcast. All right. What advice would you give to yourself 5 years ago?
Well, 5 years ago, I was running my. Oh, I'm sorry. You really want the rapid fire answer?
No worries.
Buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin. That's a good one. Are you a morning person? Okay.
Yes.
What's your
absolutely.
daily morning routine?
Oh, I wake up and do my best thinking first thing in the morning. So to the extent that I can, try to give myself some space to think through the toughest problem that I have on my plate, and then move on to family time, workout, work, the usual.
What 2 things can't you live without?
Certainly my family means everything to me, and I think interesting challenges.
What book are you currently reading or listening to?
A colleague of mine recommended a fitness book to me that I started reading, which is I need to get through.
I need to get through.
I can't remember the name right now, but yeah.
Final question is, what's been your best mistake to date? By that, I mean a setback that's given you the biggest feedback.
I would say that, I've learned a lot from hires that I've made, good and bad. And I think that in some respects, probably more from the bad hires. And I think I've learned, it's helped me understand a lot better who my colleagues should be, who to bring into the business. And it's very helpful on a day-to-day basis as we're hiring and rapidly scaling up this business at OpenStore. So that's what comes to mind.
Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We're going to link to OpenStore. It's just open.store. For those who want to, who listen, it's really memorable. And where are you guys most active on from a social media perspective? So for those who want to just follow what you guys are doing, what are the best platforms to follow OpenStore?
I would say Twitter or LinkedIn.
Are you active in either yourself?
Yes, somewhat. More on LinkedIn, but yes, the company is very active on both platforms.
We'll link to all your profiles. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, learning more about open source, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.